cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave. I'ma get right. Get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the...
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up everybody? It's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I gotta give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
Our league. Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
And best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
You're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, yo, roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down, cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right, cause I roll my sleeves up.
Yo, what up, football fans? Welcome to another episode of The Extra Point. I got my guy Kendall with me from the Fantasy Football Tavern. I would say roll your sleeves up, my guy, but you guys just got the polo on today. So it has been way too long since me and you have done a show. What's up, dude?
Hey, man, I'm happy to be sipping and chilling, talking football with my good buddy Phil, man. I've been good, man. Football's crazy, the world's crazy, but fantasy is still it's such a fickle and awesome thing, and I'm into it, man. The Bears aren't completely terrible, so that's something I haven't said in a long time. I'm feeling pretty good about my back wall here.
I mean, and I have to look, but I think I picked him in my weekly picks already for winning this week. I'm just not. I mean, I know it's in London. It's kind of funky, right? They're not like at home, but Jacksonville's sort of a mess still. So here we go. We'll figure it out. Well, we got an awesome show tonight. We are going to get into all kinds of good stuff. And before we do, as we always do at the top here, for those that are on YouTube, you can see the screen. You know what we got going on. We got shows. We got content 6 nights a week. Make sure you tune in pretty much every day except for Saturday. But Monday, waiver wires. Tuesday, check out our boy Tycoon over at the Fantasy Boardroom. Wednesday is buy low, sell high. Wednesdays is also me right here, right now, the Extra Point. Thursdays, me again. We're going to be doing our DFS higher or lower on underdog betting show. On Fridays, we have our 2-parter. We got our sit starts in the East Coast hour with Kendall and Classic Mike. Then you can stay tuned right afterwards to hang out with me and Rasta as we take you, the 4 of us, take you through every single game of the weekend. Make sure you are ready to get your lineups locked and loaded to win your week and keep moving towards the playoffs. And then, of course, on Sunday, start your day of football with our boy Classic Mike at 8 a.m. Pacific time for those last-minute active, inactive, and Q&As. Let's do it, man. Let's dive in. Let's do all the good stuff. We'll pay bills later. I want to know, number one, how are you doing in your leagues? I know some leagues we're in together, so I know how you're doing in those leagues. But is there one league that you're like super excited about? Or is there one league you thought you'd be doing? Like maybe I'm in a rebuild, but I'm actually kicking ass. Like where's some surprises coming up for you?
I would say across the board in redraft, I'm having an overall winning year. Never as winning as you want to be, but I think above where I would expect, but it's coming from the weird thing is it's coming from like lineups drafts I didn't think were my best.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I think we'll probably get into that in a later segment, but my leagues that I was at the 1-2 turn, which I think in our prep felt a little bit gross during our mock draft tournament. We really found it was hard to give the 1-2 turns the best grade. I feel like they just had a tier lower in talent. But I ended up with a lot of really like the day before and day of a lot of my drafts. I really got to thinking and I was really in on Saquon kind of out of nowhere. I know he was a strong take for you. So I took a lot of Saquon JT and a little bit of Saquon Kyron. And so those leagues are doing very, very well. The leagues I thought would be doing good had me taking Cooper Kupp and loving it. And then that ran into some issues, right? But in general, I feel like I'm kind of sitting around like 60-70% win rates, which feel pretty fantastic. My dynasty teams are lacking just a little bit of punch, though. So we need to pick that up a little bit.
Well, the good news is this is a Dynasty show, and we're going to get into some content about the Dynasty world of fantasy football. So let's not waste any more time. Let's do it. Look, I'm excuse my language, I'm fucking tired of talking about the New York Jets. Every single week we have to talk about the Jets, and it's a pain in the ass. And last week we had to talk about him because the Devontae Adams news was that he was going to go to the Jets. Now it seems like he might be going to the Ravens. So we started last week talking about, is Garrett Wilson a buy low? Is he a sell? Like, what is the impact if Adams does show up? This week we wake up and Robert Saleh loses his job, which I don't really want to talk about that because this is a Dynasty show, but I do think it has an impact on the team. My biggest question to you right now, Kendall, is with Saleh going, Nathaniel Hackett's still in place. I don't think either one of us are excited by that. The Jets offense has looked anemic. Their defense has been fine, but they've looked anemic. I had Garrett Wilson as a buy low candidate last week because I do believe in the talent. I want to talk about Breece Hall. Breece Hall starts in full PPR with 20 points, 24 points, and 18 points his first 3 weeks. So good. Not great, not slate breaker, but still really solid, at least relatively close to what you drafted him for in redraft, and certainly in Dynasty, what you're expecting him to produce. In these last 2 weeks, woof, yikes. So is there a panic level on Breece Hall right now? And is he a buy low? Is he a hold? Like, where are you with Breece?
I am trying to buy him in a couple of places. It's one of those, how low can you really buy him? It's people that bought him are so buried that they're going down with the ship unless they can flip it for something real. And that's not what I'm offering at this point. So he's realistically a hold when you're looking at it from both sides. When you look at the overall output of the offense compared to the talent on it and sort of like expected fantasy points, I think there's better days ahead just based on positive regression. But I definitely I'm hitting the panic button on snap share, much like Bijan, which we might get into maybe a little bit later on. But the snap share hasn't been this elite 80% plus that we expected it to. That's a panic button for me. We both were in on Braylon Allen, which is fantastic, but didn't see it happening quite like this. I thought Braylon would see the field after Breece had already gotten his 20, Yeah, and so that's a little bit alarming. I'm trying not to worry about the drops, but that was very concerning a couple of times, and I think that's Aaron's pretty fickle about that. But I think that the biggest thing I'm worried about is we're not getting the breakaways. The O-line looks a little bit broken. I mean, you could say the same about Aaron Rodgers. He's getting hit a lot too. There's a lot of getting tackled in the backfield. And until he's getting 7-8 targets a game, like we expected, like he averaged last year, I'm kind of permanently lowering him a tier.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you just said. The biggest things for me the last 2 weeks that has been so alarming is the snap share and obviously has been the attempts. And I think those first 3 weeks, you could make the case that even though Breece didn't produce at that, 25 to 28 point and full PPR, with the addition of Braylon Allen, he was still fine. You could play them together, right? We kind of said at the beginning of the year a little bit, like, if Braylon Allen hits, we thought this could be a poor man's Monty and Gibbs. It could be a poor man's Detroit, right? And so I think for me, what's concerning is 82% snap share in week 1 against the Niners. And he has not gone over 75% snap share in any week since. Braylon Allen's mixing in. We don't know what's going to happen with Devontae Adams, and that does impact Breece in the passing game if he does become a New York Jet. So I have him in leagues, in dynasty leagues, and I'm holding. I'm not selling, and I'm certainly not going to bail out. But at the end of the day, like, I couldn't agree with you more when you said you're lowering him a tier. Like, I'm just lowering my expectation that if he returns double-digit points, like, I'm just like, dude, that sucks. But, like, that's kind of where it is right now. And the Jets look bad, man. They look bad. Like, I know Minnesota's real. Like, you can't look at this point, you can't say Minnesota's not real. And their defense is good. It is a pretty good, solid defense. So it's like, the Sam Darnold nonsense, sure, he came back to earth a little bit last week, but Minnesota's a good team. But, like, Rodgers looked bad, man. And those picks were his fault. So it's hard for me to say anything about Breece being a league winner. It's hard to say Breece is going to get it turned around. Look, they got Buffalo this week on Monday Night Football at home. I think they lose the game. And I don't know that it's a super high-scoring game. Then they go to Pittsburgh, who that field is slow. That defense isn't bad. TJ Watt is an absolute game wrecker. You saw what they did to Dallas last week on Monday Night Football. Then they go play a division game against New England. Then they get Houston, Arizona, and Indianapolis before the bye. Like, it's not, you're not playing cupcake teams. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I don't know. I need to see 1 or 2 really solid weeks to feel like the trend is going back into the positive direction. But right now it's a hold for Brees. It sucks because you drafted him in redraft so high, and he's RB13 right now. So anything else on Brees? Anything else we want to talk about, or anything that, thoughts that come to mind? Because I know you and I are both pretty heavily invested in him, and especially in Dynasty.
Yeah, we were both talking about it in the green room before the show. I dropped a massive deal for Brees, Kenneth Walker, a first, a bunch of pieces, and that feels pretty gross. I'm in a league with you where you definitely spent up quite a bit, big haul, projecting him as potentially the one. So we'll see. I'd like to think that I was very all about, for Brees owners, I was actually happy with the Salah firing, only because I just needed something big to shake that team up. It couldn't really get a whole lot worse. And I see opportunities for positive regression just from shaking things up, waking some people up a little bit. And I really want to see those targets go up a little bit. All it takes is one good game where that is effective, where him catching the ball is effective, I think Rodgers will gain confidence in it. But it's slow to gain confidence. He's going back to what he likes to, which is unfortunately throwing to his wide receiver 3.
I mean, I was going to say, when Alan Lazard suddenly becomes like, do I need to actually go take Alan in redraft only? Do I actually need to go seriously look at putting a couple dollars worth of fab on the waiver wire for Alan Lazard? When that's a question you're asking yourself on Sundays, it's like, that's not good for Brees. So we're going to get there. It's funny you said that. I was just looking back on this trade. Achan, I sent 8. This was preseason. Actually, I think it was maybe even pre-draft. Might have been my post Super Bowl. I need to get a trade to get my fix in. I sent Achan, JSN, and a second away. I got Deontay Johnson and Brees, which actually right now looks okay.
Deontay looks a lot better than.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it looks okay as a trade, but last week I was like, or week 2, I mean, when JSN went off, I was like, So let's move on, because we got a lot to get to. Mike Torres, how could you trade Achan away? I know, I'm sorry, buddy. I know that that's your guy, but to upgrade into Brees, which again we thought volume, is Braylon Allen really going to be a thing? It's still Brees' team. All right, let's talk about a guy that we're both very high on, or at least you have flag planted on this gentleman quite hard, and I really want to know where your level of. Is this the reason for the haircut and the beard trim? Anthony Richardson, for those that are not playing the home game with us. But where are we with Richardson? Because I want to start. Just go. Just do things. Talk.
Not good.
Not good.
Not good.
That's the right answer. That's the right answer.
Not good. Okay, let me give you my main positives, main negatives. I'm 100% holding. Here's the main thing to stay positive with, right? He was trying really hard to just be the pocket passer. We weren't seeing rushing attempts. We were not seeing schemed rushing attempts. I think I was seeing more schemed rushing attempts from non-rushing quarterbacks than I was for him. I mean, they were really forcing, and I think that makes sense from a let's develop him standpoint. I think they were saying, we could lose a couple games, but we'll figure it out. I don't mind that. If he was running and still wasn't effective, that's when I would be actually worried. But I think if they just fully let him run around when he's healthy, right? Like Kyler was banged up when he came back a little bit. Now that he's fully healthy, look what he's doing, right? I think he can easily do that. I
don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. We'll get to that. So
not after last week. Yeah.
Not after last week. So once the rushing, he's going to break football because of the rushing, and you clearly saw he has an absolute cannon standing on one foot against the wind, probably. I mean, that is lethal, and they actually have the weapons to do it. Overperforming. Josh Downs looks fantastic. Pierce can track the deep ball, and there's someone that can actually get it there. That's awesome. A.D. Mitchell has an elite separator score, and it's just not getting the targets. But we're talking about elite deep threat weapons that are young, getting better. He has a lot of reason. If anything, I might buy. I'm kind of at that point, because when he hits, I think it's going to be pretty good. I will say, in the draft process, and this is a dynasty show, but for redraft, I was definitely falling into I like Jaden because he's the same thing, but I get him 4 or 5 rounds later.
Yeah.
But in Dynasty, I still think the overall upside, I mean, it's different now. We've seen Jaden play. I still think he's fantastic. I love the talent around him. There's a lot of belief in him. Flacco's going to help him. Watching Flacco, this is going to be a valuable time. Just watching Flacco do his thing, picking his brain a little bit. I think he's a good kid, right? I think he's going to take this with a grain of salt. So, I'm holding. I'm still positive. This is still a developmental year. This is still his rookie year, essentially. So I'm keeping expectations where they need to be. If you wanted to win a league with him this year, I don't think you were thinking long term in Dynasty. That was kind of he could be Lamar. It's just not going to be that way this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to say three quick things. Number one, this kid should still be a junior in college. People forget that, and I understand that. Oh well, guys come out early. Bo Nix was in college for like 600 years. You know what I mean? Like Bo Nix is like 27 years old. So you're talking about a guy who has already played, I know it's 3 games, but he had a year of at least being on an NFL sideline. So you're right. It is kind of his rookie season. He can't. So my point number 2 is you're right. He can throw it a mile, but he can't throw a slant, right? It's like Sunshine in Remember the Titans, right? Like, you got Herman Boone over there. You can throw it a mile, son, but you can't throw a 5-yard pitch. That's kind of what Anthony Richardson is right now. Like, you can throw it probably out of the building, but you're not going to be effective if you can't throw a 7-yard slant route, pick up a first down. And the other piece, it's funny that Victorious is in here tonight, and I actually bring his comment up on the screen, is he says, well, they want him to run when he seems to get hurt every time he does it. He looks scared. You're right. They want him to be a pocket passer. They're not scheming him. It's almost like the Colts are saying, like, we've invested money. We've invested a pick. Like, this is our future. Don't break him. Well, but don't handcuff him at the same time. That's my third point. What makes Lamar Jackson so effective is his ability to make off plays and run around on the field. What made Jalen Hurts so effective was his ability to run. What Jaden is doing is, so it's like, don't take one of your biggest weapons and cap it and say like, oh, well, you can't do this because, you could get hurt, or like, oh, well, we need you for the long haul, because he's not healthy right now. So I agree with you, man. That's a hold. I think better days are ahead. I think it's the same thing we said all off season. You're just going to have to deal with the growing pains of Anthony Richardson, learning how to adjust to the game, making all the throws, which I still don't think he can do. And ultimately his throwing motion looks very different after the shoulder surgery, which I don't like. So you've got to give that some time to adjust as well. You're asking him to do something he hasn't done. So I think in a dynasty format, Richardson is a hold. I'm not bailing out. And again, we're going to talk about it as we transition here into some of our trade aways and trade for targets here tonight. But like, I wouldn't trade him away right now because his value is so low. You're trading him for pennies on the dollar. You're not getting enough back for what you invested into him, especially if you were investing, if you didn't have a startup draft and you used a rookie pick. He was probably the 104 at the worst in a Superflex rookie draft last year, right? So I think for me, it's a hold, but there's some things that are scary. There's some things we like, but there's some things that you need to keep an eye on. So keep tracking Richardson, and I'm sure we'll bring him up on another show. So let's talk about some guys that we like. Let's talk about some guys that we think have some good value. I want to start with you, and I think we each have 2 in here. Yeah, 2 in the show doc tonight. Give me one of the guys of your 2 that you believe right now has great value, and you're actually looking to trade away and capitalize on that value.
Sure. So I'm gonna resurrect one that I said in a previous off-season show, but if anything, it's way sweeter right now. The ageless wonder himself, Mike Evans. Wow. I mean, first of all, first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, absolutely legendary red zone skills. It's fun to watch someone who is just so naturally gifted at the game I love to watch. It's a beautiful thing. I don't know if Baker has his resurrection without Mike Evans. I'm not sure.
Good correlation. Yeah.
He's kind of a cheat code. Baker says it when he's mic'd up all the time. Like if he's in single coverage, I mean, I'm throwing him the ball. I think that's the exact quote. But here's the thing. Mike Evans owners in Dynasty, right? Most of you are probably contending, right? So take this with a little grain of salt, but I think even in a contending position, right? His value is obscene because all the injuries, how whack this season has been, right? The wide receiver position is very banged up, right? There are wide receivers like the Dolphins that are not banged up, but they have horrible situations, right? There is a lot of interesting things happening. His points per game is absolutely irreplaceable and super elite. You have a tiny window of you can sell him for legitimately a first-round value right now because he's at a particular tier of production, consistent production in a pass first offense, where even if they're like, yeah, he's a million years old and this is like, borrowed time, 20 plus points per game. And you know what I mean? Like that's borrowed time where a contender says, I am fine lighting this pick on fire, knowing I'm lighting it on fire because this is an actual difference maker, right? When you're looking to sell an old busted player where like, most sharp leagues, people are going to have a tough negotiation there. This is a guy that's just too good right now to not cost a price tag that's going to be pretty insane. So if you're a rebuilding team, this is a no-brainer. You're probably already thinking about it. But if you're a contending team, I still think you have the ability to basically tier down, add a little bit of consistency to your run, and still get something quite good. I think you can go after like an Olave, right? An Addison, maybe a JSN, right? If you're really playing for the long haul, maybe you're going to be packages for these guys, but I think you can almost you can figure out for sure Olave, Addison, and JSN. Those are three of my particular kind of guys that I might tier down to get an additional asset. Maybe you have to add something to it, but you're going to turn a 30 plus year old into a sub 24, 25 year old that has decent production. And maybe instead of getting picks or something like that, you could probably get JSN and something for Mike Evans right now, maybe a Wandale or something like that. I really like him as a sell in pretty much all categories. Yeah, love watching him, but I think it's time. I think given a year, you're going to regret not hitting this window, this pure magical window to sell him.
Yeah, I think that's the key. That I mean, everything you just said spot on for me. I think the key that you just kind of ended with there is in a year. He's 31 years old. Baker's under contract. Evans is under contract. Godwin's under contract. So the Bucks did exactly what they said they were going to do, and they ran it back with the team that they had last year. And honestly, if they don't lose in overtime in that game last week to Atlanta, they're the clear frontrunners to win the division. Now it's a little bit. Now they've got to go to New Orleans this week and win. I do think they bounce back and win this week with Spencer Rattler getting his first start. It is what it is, right? But like, if they win the division this year, there's no reason that, I mean, they just drafted Jalen McMillan. So like, are they really going to go draft another guy? Probably not. So like, it's Mike Evans for one more year. So I think you can kind of put that, not even spin, but I think you can just put that bow on the top of your sales pitch of like, you're going to at least get 2 years out of him. Well, that's true. But like, are you going to get this peak performance every single week next year? I don't know the answer to that. We always talk about it, right? Sell a guy a year early. It's better to get out of it. Like I sold Austin Eckler, I don't even remember now, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was, before when he had still a really good season for the Chargers. And people are like, what are you doing? How could you possibly sell him? I got Tyreek out of the deal and something else. Now Tyreek's a disaster right now because the Dolphins are a disaster. But last year, which was my first year having Tyreek, guess who was the wide receiver 2 on the season? So and guess who was not relevant at all? Austin Eckler. So yeah, sometimes you got to sell a year early. So my trade away candidate, I just talked about, try not to sell a player when he's super low in value, but there's a caveat with what I'm about to say here. Mark Andrews is still a name, and he is a name at a position that is extremely scarce. I think you got to trade Mark Andrews away. I think it's time. I think you have to look at, he's got 14 targets on the season. 14 targets, Kendall. He's caught 10 passes for 120 yards. He has yet to score a touchdown. He's blocking. He's in there when he's just kind of doing chip. Like he's not the focal. He doesn't look good. I don't think he's fully healthy, and they're certainly not telling us. We don't know the severity of what that car accident was. We know he was carrying injuries coming into the season before the car accident, likely scoring touchdowns. I know he hasn't scored in a while. He scored the big week 1 and then obviously scores the game winner last weekend. But I think you can go and package Mark Andrews with whatever you need if you want to try to upgrade, or I'm actually okay downgrading and going to get, I know you just put a bunch of money on the waiver wire last week in one of our leagues to go pick up Tucker Kraft. Woof, what a nice return that was for you. Go get Pat Freiermuth and a 3rd round pick, because there is nobody in Pittsburgh besides Pickens, and I would even question Pickens right now of who can catch the ball. Go get Dalton Schultz with Nico Collins going on IR for the next month and missing 4 games. If you're looking at a kind of a like-for-like older tight end, Dalton Schultz is on a contract. Go get Schultz in a second for Mark Andrews in an offense that we like. Go get Njoku. Like, there's guys that are out there whose names are not as sexy that are still going to be involved, that are still going to, I mean, we talk about this, you and I, and especially in the group chat with all the buddies, right? But like, we talk about this all the time. Outside of the top 5, quote unquote, guaranteed top 5 tight ends, which isn't even guaranteed, 6 through 12 or 6 through 10, 6 through 12, whatever your league size is a complete crapshoot. You have absolutely no idea who's going to finish in that 6 through 12 spot. You have names. You have a lot of names, but you don't know who's going to finish there. You don't know what order they're going to finish in. We talked about Jake Ferguson, you and I, all off season. Is he a guy that's going to outproduce? I had him on our legit or bullshit segment. Is he going to outproduce Kyle Pitts? That was a serious question that we asked. Now, right now, it doesn't look that way, but who knows? But there was serious, again, yeah, right. But there was questions that we asked about certain players because of volume, because of offenses we liked, being able to take that step up and outproduce some of the quote unquote big names at the position. What was Travis Kelce last week? 9 for, I don't know, 78 or something. It's the first time it's the first time he's shown up all season. So Mark Andrews is 27 years old, I believe. He's still a name. I just traded him for Drake May in a league last week, in a super flex league. It's tight end premium. The guy needed a tight end. I needed a quarterback. And I was like, you know what? I'm fine. I'm fine making this trade right now. Now, I didn't know that Drake May was going to be the starter. It was still kind of speculative. Obviously, now he's the starter. Please don't get killed, Drake May, because, God, this rest of the season is going to be so hard for that poor kid. Like, just don't get hurt. You know what I mean? Like, I don't expect him to produce anything of value this season. But I just want to see signs. I want to see something that says by next season, I can feel confident as Drake May is my QB2 in that league because I've got Jalen Hurts in that league. So now I've got Jalen Hurts and Drake May, and I feel really good about it. And I got Mark Andrews off the roster. I still have Trey McBride. I'm totally fine. But I think my point is, I'll wrap with this. My point about Mark Andrews is this. Unless it just completely 180s and he goes back to being the old Mark Andrews, and we have seen zero signs that is going to happen, I don't think you can sell him after this. I think you've got, if you're seriously getting rid of him, I think you have to do it now, because I don't think you'll be able to get much back, because I just think people are going to look at it and go, I don't want it. I don't need it. It's not going to help me win. And that's obviously what people are looking at in a trade. So if it's one big, huge week this week and he scores a touchdown and has 70 yards, absolutely sell him. So let's kick it back to you. One more player here who is a trade away, and seems to be a little theme with you tonight on a specific team here, Kendall.
You know, I actually didn't realize that until you just said it. That's actually that's pretty hilarious. No, I mean, I love it. What I wanted to do was so like Mike Evans is kind of an obvious one, right? People not tuning into the show to have all obvious stuff. This feels a little obvious, but not necessarily. Okay. For the same theme that you had with Andrews, right? Typically we buy low, sell high, right? But sometimes you just got to let go of the hot potato because it is a sinking ship, and you got to know, you got to be the stockbroker. You got to be able to just take a loss without taking an epic loss. You got to be able to fight another day. You need to make sure you have enough assets to keep in play, right? You need to have some chips left. Don't go all in. You can always grind back up. I'm selling Rashad White. You're not getting much for him, much like Andrews. Everyone's on Bucky. No one wants to buy Rashad White. They don't want to buy him because they assume it comes with a first-round tag or it's just expensive. And I'm saying I am willing to sell essentially cheap because I don't think it's going to get any better. I think it's going to continue to get worse. He'll have pockets of games where he still catches. I mean, he had that long 50-yard, but the rest of the game was absolute crap. He doesn't look. He looks like the same player he was last year. Inefficient. Doesn't really have. He's just not a great running back. He's just a decent pass catcher, and I think he's got decent awareness. He finds himself in positions where he can get those passes, right? But it's over. It's never going to get any better. With the amount of points per game the team is producing, he should be doing something by now. The team is not going to be putting over. They're going to go from 30 to 40 points a game. I mean, they're doing quite well. It's not getting any better. So I'm selling while I can still get a second plus for him, and spin that into something relevant, right? Yep. So right now it's a timing thing too. A lot of running backs banged up, right? We're getting into the heart of bye weeks. you can at least make the claim that he's getting you 10 points. He's disappointing from where you hoped he could be when he was, a damn near league winner, but he is still producing and people know he's going to produce. And if you're RB starved and you're like, oh, I'm getting a decent price for what most people I think are getting for Rachaad White. Oh, he's selling him a little bit cheaper than I thought. I think people can talk themselves into, I've seen him be really good. Yeah, I'll make this deal. Right. So what kind of deal do I want to get for Rachaad White as the sinking ship that it won't get any better for? You're not getting a first anymore. Right. But I really like the idea of, can you do the 2025, 2026 second? Sometimes people are they're all about the first rounders, and second rounders are significantly downgraded. And the idea of a 2026 second is it's nothing to them to get a little production right now. I would settle for a second and a third in Superflex. And feel fine about it. I really would. I'd like the running back class next year. I think that second rounder in and of itself is already, in terms of production, going to be better. So I'll take a second and a third, or a second plus kind of an upside piece that I'm particular to, right? I wouldn't mind trying to get like a Garendo or a Shipley, someone who's very irrelevant right now, but could very well change their role going into next year, who's kind of just nothing right now. If I can get a second in Jalen McMillan, right? Everything's all the Bucks right now for me, I suppose, but I would be enamored to do that trade if I could. So I'm selling Rachaad White. You're gonna wish you'd sold him. Every week that goes by, you're gonna wish you'd sold him. And by the end of the year, who wants to buy Rachaad White come week 14? It's just, I don't think it's gonna be there. So let's make it happen right now.
Yep, I agree. I mean, I don't have anything to add, to be honest with you. I think at the end of it all, you have to call your shot on when you want to either trade for or trade players away, and you just have to feel confident in what you're doing. And I think that whole point of what we're talking through tonight is like giving you some ideas of players that you should be targeting, players that you should be looking to get rid of your roster, and then what you can get in return. So I will wrap us here on our trade away segment, and I will admit that I wrote this 2 days ago when I start the show, Doc. So it is fantastic that it worked out right now because of the news that came out today. And it's Michael Pittman. And I know you and I have been, we talk all the time, obviously, and we have the group chat, but like I have been trying very hard to get Michael Pittman off of my roster. He's not a touchdown guy. He scored his first touchdown last week. His last 2 weeks have actually been better, to be fair. It's been 17 points and 14 points in full PPR. Now, again, last week was not Richardson. It was Flacco. But the perception is, and we talk about this flat tier a lot, Pittman, Ayuk, London, right? I mean, we've talked about Olave. We've talked about a lot of these guys where it's like Garrett Wilson. It's like, what really separates these guys? Not much. It is kind of a flat tier here. But the perception is that these guys are wide receiver ones, and they get drafted that way. They get drafted that way for someone that starts RB. They get drafted as a really good wide receiver two with that quote, oh, if he just gets the touchdowns this year, he'll give me that wide receiver one upside. He could get that top 12 finish this season. When has he done it? When has he done it? I know you have to do it first in order to do it again. That has to always happen. That's just the rule. But he's never done it. His best ever finish, Michael Pittman, is wide receiver 13. So he has never in his career been a wide receiver one. He's also 27 years old, which I didn't realize until I was looking at today, which isn't the end of the world. But A.J. Brown is 27 years old. DK Metcalf is 27 years old. Michael Pittman is not in that category. So here's some names, and this couldn't have worked out better, Kendall. You and I were talking about this in the green room before we got on the show. So this just could not have worked out better. Here's some names that I was going through, and I was like, I bet you could get these trades done. With Aaron Jones going down, go get Ty Chandler and a second-round pick for Michael Pittman. Go get Keon Coleman. Go get Jalen Polk and a second-round pick. And I traded today. I sent a trade offer out. I was like, I wonder if I can get this. I'm going to take my own advice, see if I can get this done. Jalen Polk in a second for Michael Pittman. Trade got done. Now the news is that Pittman has a back issue that is going to sideline him for at least a couple of weeks, according to Adam Schefter, and apparently he is now a candidate for IR. So I do feel really bad on the one hand of like, I even texted my buddy and I was like, I'm so sorry, man. Like I've been shooting offers all day. Like I just saw the news and he's like, that's good. It's Dynasty. I'm in it for the long haul. I like Pittman and we'll do the deal. But I was like, great. Like, hopefully Jalen Polk, because Jalen Polk, we're going to talk about, spoiler here in a little bit, actually. It's ironic we did that as well. But the trade got done. I'm excited about it. We are going to talk about Jalen Polk here as a trade for candidate in just a little bit. But these are the kinds of things that you have to think about. And you have to, and again, you know me, Kendall, really well. But for the listeners, I like to try to use a lot of data to understand why I'm making the decisions I'm making. And right now, Michael Pittman, the data does not support that a wide receiver 1 season is going to happen. It has never happened unless Richardson and or Flacco just suddenly flips the script when he comes back, assuming he goes on IR. But now you're talking about another 4 games. Like, I don't see it. I just don't see it in the future. So at 27 years old, for a guy that hasn't done it yet, go get younger, or go try to bolster a different position on your roster, grab yourself an extra pick, and go take a shot on a rookie in next year's draft or in the 26th draft.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, look at the talent. The big thing for me with Pittman was, I mean, AR aside, right? For me, it was he has to fade AD, Mitchell not being good fast, or if we're talking Dynasty here, right? So this is like, what about a year 2 breakout for AD Mitchell? Yeah, we thought Alec Pierce was dead, but it was always, okay, he was young. Can he get a little bit better? It wasn't likely, but it happened, right? I was very big on Josh Downs. I think a lot of people in the draft process were in on Josh Downs. It didn't quite work out, but he had some big moments last year before he got injured. And now we're seeing the talent on the field. And he's also very young and getting better and recovering from injury. So fading AD Mitchell and Josh Downs, 2 very highly touted people, different types of receivers, but that's just a lot to fade with then a rushing quarterback in Dynasty. So for me, it was just too much of an ask, and you're clearly not walking into an alpha wide receiver 1 situation.
Well,
so,
look, the last thing is, and then let's talk about some trade for players, but they've paid him. So there's certain players that you could say, like T. Higgins, we talk about all the time. T. Higgins may not be a Bengal next year. So is he capable of being a wide receiver 1? Yes. Could he go and be the Rams wide receiver 1 next year? 100%. You know what I mean? Like, could he go to just about 25 of the 32 NFL teams? 100%. That is a possibility. Pittman's not going anywhere. They just paid him. You know exactly where he's going to be. And unless it's, a different backup quarterback than Flacco, Richardson's on a rookie deal. So it's either going to be Richardson or it's going to be whoever the backup is. I'm struggling to see the path. I love Pittman. But look, everything at some point, like, all good things must come to an end. So
the one thing I'll say about Pittman is, don't feel too bad. Pittman's very consistent. I think he's going to be a little disappointing, but at least you could say he's not he's not falling off a cliff. He's got paid. I think he's going to be in a decent offense. I just don't see him as your biggest point. I think that I agree with is he's just not really a wide receiver 1, right?
No,
and I think he was an expensive for what's not really a wide receiver 1.
I mean, 6 touchdowns is his highest total touchdown count in an entire season, which is fine, but exactly right. It is not getting you a wide receiver 1 season. It's not cracking the top 10 with that, the top 12 with that. So it's, it just, at some point, Fisher Cup 8. So let's talk about 4 guys that we like as trade. Let's flip the script and talk about some guys that we believe are trade for candidates. And let's start with one of your guys.
Absolutely. And we'll get you in the chat, by the way. Definitely see you in there. Appreciate it. Rasta, come hanging out. Appreciate you, man. And let's kick it off. I really want this on my back wall, by the way. This is one that's not there yet. I debated Rome, but really, I put my money where my mouth is. I've traded for him twice in Dynasty. I'm trading for Mr. DJ Moore of my beloved Chicago Bears. What a stud. I mean, I think he's just an underrated player. I think it's weird that, like, he's gotten more underrated since he's gone to the Bears. I feel like it was this big, like, he's so talented if only he had a quarterback. And I feel like we're actually seeing, like, an even more talented version of him. He's awesome. And I loved seeing how fired up Caleb was, when he was starting to hit his stride. He's hitting DJ for that first touchdown, feeling great about it, wants to go back to it again. The Bears are consistently getting better. Caleb's passer rating has gone up every single week. The first 2 games were kind of basically the same crap. But since then, I get it. It's the Panthers. We're all going to pump the brakes. But, you kind of need a few, hashtag get right games to build that confidence, right? And it's there. I see a very real connection. This is why I'm a little upset. I've overpaid for Rome in a couple places. If I'm going to overpay, it's going to be for a Bear, I suppose. But I think there's this real serious connection with DJ Moore and Caleb. I think he knows how elite he is, and it's going to happen. So I think he's a guy that wins by running very good routes. He has some savvy yards after the catch. He's having I was worried in the first 2 games because of the really low ADOT. I mean, he was not getting off the line of scrimmage, and now they're making these deeper shots work, these mid-range things. I am just loving it. It's an ascending offense. No, it is an ascending defense too. So how many points are they going to have to score in some of these games? And the targets might be a little bit down. But I thought Rome was going to be the clear-cut red zone guy, and it seems like they're trying to get to the touchdown before we even get to the red zone. So I think DJ Moore is easily scoring 10, 12 touchdowns, which is elite. He's absolutely the wide receiver one. As an antithesis to Pittman, this is a true alpha that's looking and acting like an alpha, and he can only go up. I mean, he's putting up big games together with 5-6 targets, right? If we can get the passing attempts up, if we can get the tempo and the pace of play up a little bit, this could very easily be. I'm already projecting him to be, a wide receiver one, probably fringe, 10, 12. There's some guys putting up some serious points, but I'm liking it quite a bit. Now he is a little older at 27, but with the way he plays, he's not historically been a terribly injured player. He's very savvy, right? He's got a little bit of Tyler Lockett in him where he just knows how to play the game without taking a ridiculous shot. So I think he's got enough in him where he can kind of have a Devontae Adams career where he can get to 30, maybe 31 and still be pretty decent with the way he plays the game. He might slow down a little bit. So for Dynasty, I don't look at him as like a 2-year guy and then he's dead when he's 29. I think you at least have a full 3 years with him. And we like to play Dynasty, at least for me. I'm about a 3-year window guy. And so this is still solid for me. So I like him. I also like him for his price though. I think there is still a little bit of the Bears are easy to fade. We've been bad for a long time. The coaching and play calling looked a little bit weird. You're still scared about Caleb. I am too. DeAndre Swift, it looks like a run first team. It looks like it's going to be all Swift. The defense looks good. It looks like there could be some grindier games where defensive matchups. I think you can get DJ Moore for just a first. That's what I just bought him for in a super flex league. And I think beyond that, every buyer is going to be a little bit different. Everyone's going to fear the Bears and their stink a little bit different. A first and a third, pretty reasonable. A first and a young piece if they're rebuilding, a first and Michael Wilson, a first and maybe Algier, first and Jennings, first and Jermaine Burton, something along those lines. I'm fine paying that price. And here's the real point that I want to stay with. I think that DJ Moore is just sort of a little bit mispriced in the Dynasty community because of his age plus the Bears issue. I think you can buy him we'll take the mid-range first and a third. I think I can buy him, get great production this year, get very good production next year. And if I'm not in a win now position next year, I think I can still sell him for exactly what I paid for him because I don't think his production drops. So you're telling me I can get 15 plus points per game and then I can sell him for what I paid, but I just get to keep the free production for a year, maybe win a title. That is the definition of a smash buy now in Dynasty when you can get out clean. So I like DJ Moore's buy now.
I love how you just ended that. And actually, as you were finishing that take, I thought to myself, should I? And I will after this show, probably. I'm going to go kick some trades around for DJ Moore because I think you're absolutely right. I think you can get out for what you put into it for 2 reasons, actually. Number one, Keenan is probably a 1-year rental. And if he's not, he's like 32 years old. You know what I mean? So it's like he ain't going to be around. And you're going to hate me, Kendall, but Rome has not been good. So as much as I'm not cutting bait and selling him, but he hadn't been Malik Neighbors. You know what I mean? He hadn't been good, but he hadn't been Neighbors. So yeah, it's interesting. And look, DJ Moore's been paid. Caleb's on a rookie deal. You're not going anywhere. So I like it. I promise that this was not part of my plan tonight to go through an exact inverse trade for candidate of someone that I just said trade away. It just so happened that I made this trade today, but Jalen Polk is my trade for candidate. And so I want to just say this because there's not a lot of great data on this because there's not a lot of great data on it, right? The Patriots are not fun to watch. I do think it's interesting that, excuse me one second, I want to pull this. There we go. there's two key points I want to make here with Jalen Polk. Number one, his snap share percentage has gone up every single week of the season, which means as a rookie, they are doing their best on a bad team with an atrocious offensive line in a team that is clearly in a rebuild to get a young player involved, to get him established, to get him used to NFL cornerbacks, to the speed of the game. And we liked Polk coming out. We all did. We all thought had he played at just about anywhere else other than Washington, where he played with one of the candidates of player of the year in Rome Odunze, that he probably would have been a much higher draft pick. He got overshadowed a lot there by Rome, and rightfully so. Rome played fantastic. But there is no clear-cut wide receiver one in New England. There isn't. There's people that like Pop Douglas. There's people that like Polk. Who knows who they'll trade for? Who knows who they'll draft in the offseason that this wide receiver room could change? But the caveat is this is a rookie on a rookie deal with a rookie quarterback. So unless the kid absolutely sucks, he's not going anywhere for the next 3 years. Right? He's a player that they're at least going to try to get established. He's going to have run. And you see that right now as evidenced by his snap share percentage increasing. The other point is this. Again, there's not a lot of great data because the Patriots are poor. Stevenson just got benched / is now potentially in a timeshare because of the fumbling issues with Antonio Gibson. But neither one of those guys is a massive bell cow. I mean, even though Stevenson had some more run, like we just talked about, the offensive line is bad. He's not going to be a guy that's going to command a ton of targets in the passing game where there's not going to be enough left over for somebody else. So to me, Drake May is going to push the ball downfield. That's where Jalen Polk wins. It's a good buy candidate if you believe, and I do believe this. I don't think it's going to be good this season. But with Drake May taking over this week, I want to see a couple of at least weeks where I say, is there a connection between these two players? If Jalen Polk's going to get 5 targets a game, he got 6 last week, 7 the week before. Is he going to get 5 to 6 targets a game? What is the quality of that target going to look like? What does he do with it when he's able to catch it? Is there any yak ability? Is there big play, deep threat ability? That's what I'm looking for. And at the end of the day, I just traded for him. I got Michael Pittman off the roster. I got a 2nd-round pick coming in. I got Jalen Polk. I like that trade. I have in that particular league, I do have Drake May. He's my QB3, so I don't need him right now in Superflex. He can kind of sit there and develop. But I like the idea that Jalen Polk with Drake May hopefully could end up being a QB2 stacked with a wide receiver 3 that has some wide receiver 2 upside. That's exactly what Michael Pittman is. So if Jalen Polk develops into a wide receiver 2 over the next 3 to 4 years of his rookie deal, and I get the 2nd-round pick on top of it, I'm ecstatic. So go trade for Jalen Polk, and if you think that price is too high and you get him for a cheaper price, shoot me a note on Sleeper, shoot me a DM, shoot me a tweet at P Ruskin on X, whatever they call it now, X, Twitter. It's still Twitter. Sorry. I'd love to know what you get. I'd love to know how you're able to work this. But I think Polk is a player over the next couple of weeks that we should be keeping an eye on in the Dynasty community. Because just like you said a second ago, this is a player that is mispriced. He's getting completely left for dead because the Patriots suck.
Yeah, that stems from the ecosystem that he's a part of, which is planned, and is disproportionately affecting his dynasty value in particular. Honestly, even his redraft value. He has been kind of one of my, you got to reach down the board in Sleeper because his projections, if you're just looking at available wide receiver or flex, he's too far down to really get people looking at him. I kind of like it as a bunch of these guys are going to get me 8 points. I think he can actually become something very, very real with upgraded quarterback play. And the big thing with him is he, like you said, the snap share has been going up. His route participation has been going up. And in the last game, 100%, he was in on every snap and he ran a route. Every single ran a route. There was no BS. So he's, look, who knows what we're going to get from Drake May, but what if Drake May's great?
I don't expect that to happen this season, but you're right. Let's rephrase that for a second. What if he's competent? What if he just hyper targets 1 or 2? What if he hyper targets Pop Douglas and Jalen Polk, and this is a consolidation of targets? Because Hunter Henry's in and out of the lineup. You know what I mean? Like it's not. They don't have an alpha, right? Like I don't want to bring the Raiders up, but like they don't have like a Devontae Adams. It's like on paper, this is the guy, and then everyone else kind of just takes a back seat, right? Like the Cowboys are the best example. Like we have CeeDee Lamb. He is a true alpha. That's why we like Jake Ferguson so much, because there's nobody else outside of CeeDee Lamb that can realistically catch the ball. But that player doesn't exist in New England. There is no alpha player there that is going to command the target share. So it is there for the taking. I see the path. I want to see some signs from May that this could be something good. And you know what? If it sucks, it wouldn't be the first time we've all made a bad trade, and it won't be the last. That's how it goes sometimes, like we've all made great trades. We've all made shitty trades. It's just Dynasty. That's how it goes. So I see a path here for Jalen Polk. Let's jump
everyone
over.
in our leagues watches the show, and so we have to do all of our trades before we record.
Oh yeah, of course. Now. I mean, yeah, because now everyone's like, "Oh, I'm going to go make a trade for DJ Moore because Kendall had such a good." Yeah, no kidding. I want 3 first-round picks for DJ Moore. Yeah, get out of here, kick rocks, buddy.
All right, this next player, I'm hot and bothered. I am, brother, oh my goodness. So okay, there's a thing. One of my trading philosophies, right, is the sharper a league you're in, where everyone's checking 3 different sources, they have a pretty good, they have a good market watch sense, where you're just not going to get an insane value. It just is, it is what it is. It's going to be near impossible to really, truly buy low, sell high. You're going to have to get a little crafty. It's going to have to be a stylistic. I'm contending you're rebuilding. This makes sense. For me, it's important to find, if I'm looking to buy a player, I want to find a player that's probably doing well and producing, right? But those players go for a lot. You can't buy them low when everyone's high on them. I want to find a player who everyone else in the room is like an 8, 8.5 out of 10 on, and I'm an actual 12. I mean, I could not be hotter on this player. So I'll just straight up offer a ridiculous price, and I'm way cool with it. In particular, when it's a rookie, and this is a rookie, where did they go in the draft? And are you very comfortable paying draft capital that is much more favorable to where they got drafted? And that is very true of this player to me. And we get to take a victory lap on this segment that I know me and you are going to enjoy, because we couldn't have called it in a bigger way. My favorite buy is Brock Bowers, my tight end 1 in Dynasty, and it's really not particularly close. Wow, is he good at football? We knew this when he was a freshman, by the way, when he was dominating the SEC as an actual freshman. They're just amazing. His participation in that offense, which you just don't see from rookie tight ends. It's kind of a thing we all know. Tight ends take a while, and he was just boom, NFL ready as I've ever seen it, right? Like what we wanted Kyle Pitts to be, but honestly, even better. Just ridiculous. Adams is leaving. He is consistently beating man and press coverage. You just can't. You want to take him away? Good luck. It's probably not going to happen. The target share, having a tight end that is not touchdown dependent and can still get you 15 plus is obscene. You don't see it. You don't see it in the best veterans. And you get that with Bowers, and you get it with that as a rookie. In his situation, he's got terrible quarterback play. Atrocious quarterback play, and he's still not touchdown dependent, and he's making it happen, and he's winning. Like you could arguably say that his situation only gets better. Adams is leaving. The quarterback play can't get any worse. He's going to be the focal point of the offense all the time, and he plays a position that's very hard to take away. And there's just enough talent around him where, I mean, if you just decide to really take him away, Jacoby Myers is very competent, and Trey Tucker will punish you a little bit. I mean, he's not elite. He's not Jamison Williams, but he's very serviceable, and I think they can put some pieces around him. God forbid if they had a running game to go with it, that team could be kind of real. He's the only reason that team it has, pick'ems against other teams, that, really. So, where'd you draft Bowers in Superflex, right? Kind of mid, 6, 7, 8 is kind of where he's
106 to 108. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He was my, I had a lot of double first round picks in a lot of my dynasty leagues. And so for me, here's my decisions. It was
wait. You had a lot of picks in a dynasty league? This is brand new information to me.
Never happens, right? I find them all over the place, just lying on the ground, man. Yeah. Hey, when I play Dynasty,
them out like Halloween candy, buddy. Kendall's over there with his little sack and his little, Spider-Man masks. Please, sir, may I have the king size first round pick?
Dude, I'm a door-to-door salesman when I join a Dynasty league. All right, everything is for sale. It all must go. And then we crush it year 2. But it was like, I'm taking Bowers and whoever else, right? I maybe missed a little bit. I took a lot of Worthy over BTJ, but so Bowers went for like a mid first. I am perfectly fine throwing 2 firsts at him. 2 firsts and a piece. I'll throw 2 firsts and Schultz, 2 firsts and Freiermuth. I don't care. He is, I mean, at this point, in terms of an overall dynasty asset, he's easily cracked the top 20. He's almost in my top 10, like non-quarterbacks. It's just kind of ridiculous. So yeah, I can't say enough. What would you go get for him? I think, yeah, at least I'm going 2 firsts for him, and I'm feeling very okay with that. Maybe you don't have to. You don't even have to start there. A first, a second, and a decent piece, and I'm still feeling good. And maybe you figure out how to massage that and go from there. I don't have it's such a big piece where you can throw so many combinations together. That's why I'm not being hyper specific, because I could go on for a long time. The bigger the trade, the more combinations you could put together. But I think you have the idea that I'm going at least 2 relative firsts of value, and I would go more and feel comfortable with it.
I love it. I think, look, let's just say this, because you said something I thought that was really interesting, right? Like, you can't always buy low and sell high on guys. It's just not possible. And I think some of the things that we're trying to give you all, at least especially in tonight's show, is sometimes you just got to go buy good players and pay what you got to pay, or maybe even overpay. So a trade for candidate doesn't mean like, well, he's been really down and he's about to explode, and like, this is the week to go get it. Sure, that can mean that can be a part of what we're saying, but sometimes you just go and get a guy who is a good player that is actually attainable. Because you can't go trade for Justin Jefferson every week. You can't go trade for CD Lamb. It's just not going to happen, right? Sure, you could pay the iron price and 3 first-round picks and mortgage the team. And if you've been a fan of the show for a while, Kendall and I are very on record talking about do not do that. Do not mortgage your entire team, because if you go draft CD Lamb and you pay 3 first-round picks and whatever else, and then all of a sudden CD is not available for half of your season, you could set your dynasty team back a couple of years.
Such a perfect example, because that would not be good if you just did that for CD right now. Wide receiver, like 19, I think.
That's what I mean. Like, and he's playing. I'm talking about guys that could potentially. If you traded for Christian McCaffrey this offseason, and you gave up 2 first-round picks plus a running back to go get McCaffrey. Yee. So I want to wrap with this before and then we're going to actually...
Oh, wait, we got a victory lap, because me and you, we're
you
real quick. They're sharing this. I think we did at least 4 shows together that had a segment involving our number 1 least favorite don't draft off my board. I don't care. Sam Laporta. We all told you guys, Sam Laporta had 1 billion touchdowns that made no sense. 1 other deep threat in the team, and it's going to be problem city for him. So yeah, Brock Bowers, tight end 1. Sam Laporta. I told you. Not happening.
Yeah, he was actually the poster boy for our do not draft and redraft show that we did. He is on the thumbnail. You can go look up that show as well, and he's right there. We said do not draft Sam Laporta in the 2nd round
or the 3rd.
We said don't do it, and if you did, whoopsies.
Hey, there's always Kyle Pitts.
There's a lot of football left to play, but he ain't scoring 10 touchdowns right now, as of right now. All right. This next player is a good player. This is not he's about to explode. He's just a good player, and everyone knows that he is a good player. But I love the fact that he is a trade for player in my book, because Nico just went on IR for 4 weeks. I know it's a dynasty show, so it's a lot more than 4 weeks. But look, Tank hasn't been good this season. Tank Dell has not been great. We know that. He came into the season banged up. Right? He missed week 4 2 weeks ago against Jacksonville. He horribly hurt you against Chicago. To be fair, he's hurt you every week. But he's still a really good player. He is on a rookie contract. His quarterback was just the offensive rookie of the year on a rookie contract. They are going to continue to throw the football. This is a good offense. They have a solid defense. This is a playoff team. And at the end of the day, yes, we know fantasy football, you don't always have to have teams that are going to go to the actual NFL playoffs to be good, but you do need to have teams generally that are winning or at least losing and scoring a lot of points to produce fantasy points for your team. So I do think you need to trade for Tank now. I know people are going to be on him because in redraft, you can't trade for him because of the Nico news. So he's out off your board in redraft leagues. If you have, like, I have him in a redraft league, and I don't want anyone to get hurt, but I'll be honest, with Mixon out, with Nico out, I'm like, come on, Tank. It's got to be this week. It's got to be this week, buddy. This is your week to just boom. And so I do think that there is a possibility that you can go get Tank. And this is why he's a trade for target for me. I think there's a possibility you can get him for a cheaper price now than you ever could have got him last season, aside from the first couple of weeks before he really blew up. And that's why he's a trade for target. We talk about it, right? Buy low, sell high. Well, sometimes it's just buy lower than what the price would have been. Buy him on a discount. That's what I'm saying with this particular take here. I think you're going to get 4 great weeks out of him. Steph Diggs is still going to be there. I think he's still relevant. I know he's not super dynasty relevant because of the age and the unknowns of the contract for next season, but Tank is a known commodity. You have seen a player produce at an excellent level. You know what he is capable of. And at the end of the day, I told you all at the beginning of the show, I want to go off of data. This is a guy that finished last season as who just exploded over the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season and was a top 12 guy those weeks. That's what I want. That's what I'm trading for. And he's Stroud's guy. So go get Tank Dell. You'll get him at a price now that you could not have got him last year. And I think if things go the way we project them to go over the next month, you're not going to get him at this price again the rest of the season if you're trying to acquire him. So let's pause and do some questions. And then we'll get into the last segment and play our little game as we wrap up the show. So you got a good, I know you were starring some stuff in the chat here. You want to bring one up on the screen for us?
A couple there. Let's go get them. All right. We said we'd get to them. Mr. Will Hayes, hope you're still with us. So would you trade Jalen Waddle and Tajay Spears for Kyle Pitts and Tank Dell? So we're thinking about getting the Dell side. If you're still in the chat, let us know what format this is. I'm gonna assume, since this is a Dynasty show, that this is a Dynasty trade. Waddle and Spears, Kyle Pitts and Tank Dell. I'm definitely taking the Pitts and Tank Dell side for sure. I like that quite a bit. I don't know when Waddle's going to be relevant. I don't know how that gets resolved. And Spears is good, not great. I think his ceiling is extremely capped. Kyle Pitts, I think he just started drinking like a minute ago. I mean, he's still young. That offense is still getting better. And Tank's the real prize there. I think the nice way to get Tank is to put him as part of a package, so it's not so obvious that he's the focal point where the price goes up. This is a great trade.
Yeah, I mean, I just did a whole segment on Tank Dell, so I'm very clearly on the Tank Dell side. I just want to say this, though, on the opposite side really quickly. I really thought about Jalen Waddle being a part of tonight's show. Kendall, I know you and I were talking about him for a couple minutes before the show started. I don't know what to do with Jalen Waddle. I don't know if you trade for him because of the inconsistency at the quarterback position. And even if Tua comes back, what the hell is it going to look like? And how long is he going to be around? And I don't think you trade Waddle away because you know what he's capable of, and you're not going to get what you've paid for. So the downside of Waddle is he's going to be a Dolphin. They've paid him. He got the bag. So it's not like T. Higgins, right? Where he could suddenly wind up in a really great situation and go and be the guy somewhere else. So if the Dolphins can't resolve the Tua quarterback conundrum, I think you just have to fade Waddle. I mean, the answer is still Pitts and Dell, but I do think for people that, were wanting, I really did want to do some stuff, and maybe we should just do something on our own next week or the week after, just talking about Waddle, because it is an interesting study. And the Dolphins in general are really just like, what do you do with them right now because of this Tua situation? So, yeah.
All right. Appreciate that, Will. Thanks for hopping in. Michael Lopez wants to know, good evening. Thank you, sir. I want to add running back depth to my team. I have Kenneth Walker and J.K. Dobbins for my starters, with Rashad White and Braylon Allen on my bench. I have Addison, McConkey, Shaheed, Dell, and Mooney to offer for trades. Thank you in advance. Appreciate the question. Phil, I kind of took that first one quite a bit. What are you thinking here? Want to add RB depth? Here's what he has. What are maybe some trade targets based on what he has that you might want to put together?
So he adds real quick, 12-man full team PPR redraft. So that does make a difference, and I appreciate that. I'm going to take the cop out for 1 second. If this was a dynasty question, I'm selling Mooney. He's the clear sell for me in a dynasty format because the pace isn't sustainable. The problem is this is a redraft question, and Mooney is absolutely on fire right now. So I think the sell here is McConkey, and you just go get another running back. It's hard for me because McConkey's value doesn't equate to like a real game-changing running back. And that's okay. Like maybe you're not trying to find that, but the names that I'm thinking of is like, do you go get Chase Brown? Like, would you do
his
Chase
price just
Brown from
spiked, but he might be worth it. But
it did, right? I because again, he is kind of starting to outproduce Zach Moss. The Burrow and the Bengals are getting better. I almost said the Bengals, but that's because I pushed them. but like that name comes to mind because it's still not like he owns the backfield, right? Because like if you think about McConkey, he's touchdown dependent because there's just not enough volume in Los Angeles to really make any of those receivers truly viable. So then if that's the case, then I'm thinking, okay, how do I go get a guy that's a running back that's like Tyrone Tracy? Is Tyrone Tracy really going to be a thing when Devin Singletary comes back? Probably not. So like you're getting a rental for a week or two. I know he just had the big week. Was it 129 or whatever last week? But like,
yeah, it was big. One target in an offense that I don't think any of us truly believe in long term either way too. So it's kind of a fool's gold thing.
Well,
yeah, that's tough. I got two names in mind, but I kind of want to hear what you got to say.
I was just going to say that keep this in mind with Tyrone Tracy. No neighbors last week. That's the other caveat. So like I'm thinking Chase Brown. I wonder if you could get McConkey for Bucky done. I know it's not great to have both guys in Tampa Bay, but at least you have the insurance policy and you own the Tampa Bay backfield. And the reason I say that is hear me out on this. If Rachaad White's already on your bench anyway, Bucky's probably the guy to own. You just talked about trading him away in Dynasty. So
you're looking for depth. You're asking for depth here. And
you're looking for depth, guys.
You would be adding depth that has upside because of the handcuff situation that that's the name I had in mind.
Ty Chandler with 4 weeks, guaranteed 4 weeks with Aaron Jones.
Going to get you through the bulk of the bye weeks.
That's what I mean.
Sure.
Like,
I like that.
He's an interesting name. So, all right. So that's enough.
My two are Rico Dowdle is on an upward trend and no one believes him enough to really charge you a ton for him. But I do think that offense right now, the offense is taking a lot of red zone trips. I think you can get him for cheap enough. And if you have to pay a decent amount for him, I still think Ladd is a big name. He's easily going to get you him. I think you should get more back. And I like Javonte. Javonte is a name that kind of feels gross. No one wants to start him. It feels like he's pretty capped, but he is starting to get to 5-6 targets a game. There's a good consistent floor, and Bo Nix is getting a little bit better with wide receivers that are kind of lame. I feel like his price is a little depressed for how consistent he is with a little bit of upside. And I think a guy like Addison or McConkey could probably get that done because he's a little bit more expensive. That's a name that I have in mind. Bigsby's a waiver wire guy, and I think people would be thrilled to flip Bigsby for something. I'm kind of in. I'm pretty into him getting some snaps. And again, this is depth. So I think he's a guy that he's maybe expensive for depth, though, as a thing.
I was going to say, I'd rather have Bigsby. Like, if I'm the Bigsby owner and you offer me McConkey, I'm not taking that. That's just in redraft, that's just me being transparent. Like, I'm just not. Like, there's just not enough volume. There's just not. Like, it's hard. It's hard with the Chargers right now, man. It's hard.
We hit the big names. It's not a big
list. I think there's 5 names. That's enough to go and shoot some offers and see what happens. And stranger things have happened. Trades get done all the time that shouldn't get done, and you go, "Ooh, I don't know about that." So,
my answer is I don't think you need a ton of depth. I kind of like I don't think you need a crazy amount of running back depth. I would be aggressively targeting the waiver wire for upside stuff, but I don't necessarily know that I like a lot of your wide receivers, to be honest, and I'm almost like I think they're worth more in production than what people would be willing to risk in trade. Is kind of my point. Here's
one more thing.
Examples.
I was thinking about this real quick. He says he has Addison, McConkey, Shaheed, Dell, and Mooney to offer for trade, which makes me believe that he's got 2 solid guys he feels really good about at his wide receiver 1 and 2 spots. I wonder if you couldn't take McConkey and Shaheed and put that together for something, or take McConkey. If you've got 2 really solid, Michael Lopez, if you're in the chat, man, or sorry, if you're still in the show here, throw us in the chat of who your starters are. He's got London and Chase. He's here. I would.
Okay.
I mean,
I almost think I think we're saying change the premise, right? We're saying I don't know if you need depth, man. I think you need to like try to package to tier up.
That's what I was just going to say.
To do so,
I would put. I know it's hard because Mooney is on absolute fire right now, to the moon, and the running back position is. Ooh, but go put Mooney and Dobbins together and see if you can't go get Brees. I don't think that's too expensive.
Yeah, look, if you're like 4-1 or something like that, you could try to go get like a Pacheco if you get an IR spot. See if you can't grab him to someone who just can't afford the long term kind of thing there.
Kamara is an interesting name though.
Kamara's an interesting name.
I actually think Kamara. I know this is a dynasty show, but I think Kamara is a really, really interesting trade for Tar. I don't think you can get it done because the Saints are so up and down right now, but Kamara is a really interesting name because Spencer Rattler's the quarterback now for at least 1 week. If not, I think it's a multi-week injury, this oblique thing for Derek Carr, which means, are they really going to push it down the field that much? I don't know, right? Spencer Rattler's coming out today talking about when Chris Olave's on the field, my job is to get him the ball, sure. But like Shaheed's a deep threat guy. And I really do. I thought this the other day, actually, because I have Derek Carr in a couple of just old super flex leagues, right? That he's just been on the roster forever. I was like, I think Kamara is going to get an uptick and they're going to lean on him a little bit more over these next couple of weeks, especially in the passing game.
Last year, the 10 target games.
That's what I mean. To get Spencer Rattler comfortable. Give him some easy throws in the flat, some easy completions to Kamara, and let Kamara do the rest of the work. So Kamara is a name, I think, Michael, you could probably put one or two of these guys together and go see if you could tear up into that.
Yep. I like it.
Yeah, Rasta saying in the chat, I thought this thought too. It's expensive, though, but put three of them together and go get Brees. I was thinking about Gibbs. Can you go get Gibbs? Can you go get Monty? Can you put two of those guys together and go get Monty? Or can you put one and something else you didn't mention and get Monty? That'd be a great touchdown upside guy. So
offer across the board for that tier. See what sticks. See what you get back, and then throw us something on X or in the sleeper channel. What the offers are. We love working these deals. We've got a big chat that literally, if you communicate well with us, we got like 6 of us that are going to talk for 2 hours and really fine tooth comb this for you because we're degenerates. So I'm with you. But Rasta had a quick one here, and I had actually a thought on this too. What are your thoughts of Tank Dell's age versus experience? He's older than some of the guys that have been in the league a lot longer, like London. Kind of faded him in Dynasty because he's a little bit older in the Diggs signing. I think that's a legitimate point. I guess I'm not necessarily going to answer your question so much because I'm not super worried about it. To be honest, I mean, sure, it does cut a year off of his lifespan, but I think the idea is the next 3 to 4 years, he's either going to be, decent, good, or great. And I think him being decent, good, or great is way different than in a year or two, right? At the end of the day, it's Olave being 24 versus 26. What are we pissed about? We're pissed that he's not scoring, right? At the end of the day, it's going to be what his production is. And I think they think it's more excuses than you actually gave him, Phil. Here's my take on Dell is he got shot in the offseason. Oh, even before that, he broke his ankle.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, coaching staff. That was stupid. So he breaks an ankle. He gets shot. Remember after before after he got shot, he got injured again. So he spent so much time not playing football, not in tip-top shape. These are the top 1% of the 1% of athletes that also play football. And changing up your regimen just a little bit, having half a step slower, right? Just being a little bit rusty on your brakes. He has not been playing football at the same clip for quite some time. And I did think there was going to be a lot of rust. And when you're surrounded by elite talent, that rust is going to be exaggerated very, very big in the NFL. So I think there are better days to come this season, but definitely in the future, because his injuries were kind of fluky and he just spent a lot of the offseason and a lot of the preseason being banged up. Give him a little bit of time and a little bit of grace. I'm not super worried about him. And his ADOT's ridiculous. With Nico out too, his ADOT's insane. And Nico was the one that was getting all of the air yardage. I think he eats.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at a little bit of the breakout age. You have to look at the production profile. Like, you have to look at their role in the offense. Drake London is the unquestioned number one in that offense. Tank is not. There's 3 guys. There's 2 right now because Nico's going on IR. But there's 3 guys in that offense that legitimately have a case of why they should be getting targets each and every week. So I think that obviously makes the case for Tank a little bit weaker. I understand what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, you still have a player on a rookie contract. To me, the contract trumps the age because the breakout age for Nico had 1 really good season in his entire career. It was last year. If Nico doesn't have that season, he doesn't get paid. We're not talking about Nico Collins this year at all. He becomes the next insert name here of guys that have had potential, showed some sparks, and then boom, just kind of phased themselves out of the, maybe not out of the league, but out of like real everyday, like, should this guy even be in my roster?
Kenny
right?
Galladay.
Kenny Galladay. Yeah, well, Kenny was, for a minute, he was hot, but yes, faded completely, right? My point here with Tank, quite simply, is he has a rapport with Stroud. Stroud loves him, and we have seen production, right? It's the reason why we liked Jalen Waddle. It's the reason why we like Devonta Smith, because these are guys who are not the number one in their offense. They are not the true alphas, but they have produced alongside an alpha with that same quarterback and still given you a wide receiver 1 season. We have seen it happen. So to me, that's why I don't necessarily worry as much about the age or the experience or the size. What do my eyeballs see when I watch Sunday football? I see a player that likes Stroud. I see a player that can beat coverage. I see a player that they can get targets, score touchdowns. It's hard, even with the other names that are there, it's still hard to poke holes into why he's not going to be successful. So let's wrap with our game. And this game it's a newer game, and you guys know I love my games. And this game is called Who Am I? So I'm going to give you a couple of clues for this player. And if you can't get it, no big deal. I will tell you eventually who it is. And then we're just going to talk for a couple minutes about their dynasty value. And as soon as you hear the names, you'll go, oh, I know exactly why Phil picked these players this week.
I love it. Help me out, chat.
All right. Yeah, chat. This is a participation game. Who am I? I am quarterback 29 on the season. And don't go to Sleeper and Google it. That's cheating.
Quarterback 29, you said?
It's between 27 and 29, half and full PPR. But yeah, on average, 29.
Oh, I got nothing.
Okay. I have thrown 1 touchdown in every game this season, except for week 2, when I threw 2 touchdowns.
Low touchdowns.
Uh-huh.
Played every game, but low touchdowns.
Played every game. Threw exactly 1 touchdown in every game, except for week 2 when he threw the deuce.
Gino hasn't been throwing a crazy amount of touchdowns, but he's
too
high in the list.
It's a good
Not
guess,
Gino.
actually. Correct, but he is too high on the list. Well done. That's a good guess, but it's not him.
Yeah, Minshew's a decent guess, but I actually think he's outside of that.
We don't have
range.
booger eaters on national television talked about on this show.
All right, one more clue. I think I'm narrowing. I'm getting like the one.
I have not.
Like running through.
I have not. This one's sad. 30. I have not outproduced my fantasy projection 1 time this season.
Produced my projections.
These next 2 clues, you should get it.
Oh wait, 1 touchdown. This is a rushing team. This is a run
That's
first
correct.
team.
That is correct.
And this is Herbert. It's got to be Herbert.
Yes, let's go.
Let's go,
Herbert.
baby.
It is Justin Herbert. What? I don't want to talk about trades. I don't want to talk about. 30. I don't want to talk about buy, sell, hold with Herbert. What I want to talk about is this for just 1 minute, and then we're going to move on. Are we actually seeing right now what is going to be the norm moving forward for Justin Herbert? Is this because before you answer, and if you know your answer, that's fine. Because we feared that this was going to be low volume. He'd have to be hyper efficient. They were going to run the ball, and they're not very good right now. And we expect them to get better with an offensive line and then do more of this. So is this really what we can expect from Justin Herbert going forward?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so at all. Plus,
so the Justin Herbert owners are happy to hear that.
Yeah. And again, maybe this is like a self-fulfilling thing because I'm the guy that was like, I'm feeling weird about Kyler. I sold Kyler too soon, and I did the Kyler for Herbert flip, which feels really gross right now.
I remember we talked about that. Yeah.
Look, he's been banged up. Okay, so they're not going crazy. He has a lot of young guys around him at wide receiver who are still figuring it out, right? QJ might not ever figure it out, in my opinion, but definitely Ladd is figuring it out. They've had not the craziest opponents. Their defense has been way above schedule. Dobbins is way ahead of schedule. So, we knew they wanted to run the ball, but I don't think they even thought that they would get what they got out of Dobbins. I don't think they knew what they were going to get in their defense, and no one's really given it to him yet. I think it's going to happen next 2-3 weeks. They're going to have someone that just puts some points on them, and we're going to see a full second half of just slinging it. And my goodness, we know that the way he throws the football is just, it's a God-given gift. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. We haven't seen that yet. And I feel like there's definitely a level of like, he's been banged up 6 different ways. So there's a lack of confidence. Look at his pass attempts. I mean, we're talking 20, 20, 20, even in obscenely terrible quarterback play, right? You just don't see attempts that low on bad teams and good teams. It's just an anomaly. It never happens, right? This is like a weird weather situation. So I just don't think the way the NFL is set up, he doesn't have a dumb coach, right? It's set up to, you can win through the air better than through the ground with the amount of penalties. The defenses can't work with it very well. So I think I give it a little bit of time. I think they're kind of just easing into the season. The team doesn't know what they have at wide receiver and what works and what doesn't. I think there's going to be better days to come. Limited because of the weapons, that's a real thing. But better days to come for sure. I think I definitely see like high-end QB2 numbers coming soon.
I'll just say this, and then we're going to move on. What does scare me is exactly what you just said with the passing attempts. Joe Flacco's played 2 games this season. He has 70 passing attempts. Justin Herbert has played every game this season. They were on a bye last week. He's only thrown it 91 times. So that does scare me, but we'll get there. All right, 2 more. Who am I? I almost just said the answer because it's in front of me. I am RB24 on the season.
RB24 on the season. My head immediately goes to like, oh, what are the dead zone running backs? I could throw random guesses, but I definitely don't know super well. Okay, I'll take one random guess. I'm going to go Singletary. No, he's way past 24.
Way past that.
No way.
I scored my first touchdown. This one was shocking. I didn't realize this. I scored my first touchdown of the season last week, which was a rushing touchdown.
Oh, that gave it away for me. Okay, so I actually know this one now. This is Josh Jacobs.
It's correct. It's Josh Jacobs.
Because he caught a passing touchdown, which was a big deal earlier, but he hadn't rushed for one yet.
He had a rushing touchdown.
Which was shocking. It was crazy. Like when I remember the announcer saying, I'm like, there's just no way. But yeah.
So here is there was 2 other clues, but we'll just save those. Here is my good job. We talked all season about Marshawn Lloyd. We talked all offseason about the Josh Jacobs contract. Is this really a real contract? Can the Packers get out of this? What if Josh Jacobs is the Josh Jacobs we saw last year at the Raiders and he's just done? A.J. Dillon goes on IR before the season even starts, and then Marshawn Lloyd goes on IR about 6 minutes after the first, kick of the football there on Thursday Night Football, Chiefs-Ravens. So he is the only relevant guy on his roster. Is he going to be a serious threat? Because there's a lot of people invested in Marshawn Lloyd. Is he going to be a serious threat to remain on the Packers and be the guy next season if Marshawn Lloyd can't get on the field this year? I know that's kind of an easy question, but like the Marshawn Lloyd owners need to know what is going to happen with Josh Jacobs, or at least what we think is going to happen with Josh Jacobs.
I agree. My take is, I'm kind of, it feels like he very quickly became a big part of the identity of the team. He was asked to do things early in a way that I don't think they were even expecting. And I think he did well. His like lack of mistakes, like anyone can have a great game, but I like that he just was consistently good enough on a team that really needs consistently good enough because everything around him is really good enough, right? I think with what Reed is able to do in stretching the field, their wide receivers are a little banged up, but when healthy, if Wicks could just catch a ball, man, my goodness, he's an insane route runner and separator.
I have pain from Dontavian Wicks last week, as does everyone else. But
I've never seen a guy look that open, that often, that quick, and still be like, but to like 2 for 7 and weird stuff. Yeah, I'm on team like Jacobs is gonna be there for a minute. He looks decent. I don't think he looks crazy explosive. I don't think we're going to see a lot of the explosive plays. That was a bit of a knock on him that a lot of people think, hey, a lot of touches, lack of explosive plays last year, efficiency will come down. Efficiency's been okay. It's just, it's kind of death by 1,000 cuts, but it's just good enough. Decent involvement in the passing game. Like you said, the rushing touchdowns have been very low, but the points per game and offense and yards totals have been there. I think he's a candidate for like he's just been unlucky. It seems like positive regression is going to be there for him. And yeah, I'm kind of on Team Jacobs. I do worry for the folks behind him. I think their breakout is going to get delayed to a point where, you know how it happens with these rookies, where sometimes if the breakout doesn't happen early, they can kind of just get thrown into this kind of mess. Yep. I don't think you can sell if you're the backup owner there, no. But I mean, you just can't. No. But if due to injury they get a shot, I am selling quickly in that case for whatever I can.
Yeah, and so I want to add two quick things. Here's the next 4 weeks. Arizona should be points in that game. Houston should be points in that game. Jacksonville should be a good game. They're awful, so there may not be a ton of points in that game, but should be a good rushing day for Josh Jacobs. And then they go to Detroit. They host Detroit in what hopefully, please God, will be an absolute shootout.
That's going to be the highest over-under in the week. Easy.
Assuming everyone's healthy, yes. That week it will be 100%. And that's in week 9. And then they go on bye in week 10. So in the next 4 weeks, we like the offense against the offense. We like those matchups. There should be a lot of points. I, like you, and probably me actually a little bit, now that I say that out loud, a little bit more so than you, was very high on Marshawn Lloyd, to the point where I was almost like, what if I'm wrong and Jacobs is the guy? And I started to kind of scale back my investment into Lloyd in my rookie drafts here this offseason. You can't sell Marshawn Lloyd. But I do, my biggest fear right now is that Josh Jacobs is going to be the running back for this team next season. Marshawn Lloyd's going to be involved, and we're going to have kind of a upgraded, situation from Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, where they were both involved. They were still relevant, but you couldn't really have somebody who
this Emmanuel kid's good.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's like you don't really have like a true bell cow here. You're going to have guys that are involved, but I think a lot of people, I'm speaking hyperbole a little bit, but I think a lot of people had thought investing in Marshawn Lloyd was going to lead you next season to the Green Bay running back who was a 3 down or at least a 2 down, and goal line guy, because Jacobs wouldn't be in the picture. And I know we're only 6 weeks in. I don't think it looks that way anymore. I don't. So I think you just have, like you said, I think you got to hope that Lloyd comes back and gets involved regardless of Jacobs' injury or health. And if obviously Jacobs misses time and Lloyd blows up, I think you might be right. I think it might be a sell. So it's an interesting one to keep an eye on over the next month or two as we get into the deeper parts of the season here. But again, why I'm picking these names, because these are names people have questions. All right, so last one here. You ready?
Let's hit it.
I am wide receiver 15 on the season.
Wide receiver 15. Ooh.
Sexy.
All right, random guess. Jameson Williams. I thought you the look on your face. I kind of thought I had that one. Oh no! All right.
Except for week one, I have had over 50 receiving yards in every game since.
Dud week 1, over 50. Ooh, Rasta says Jennings. Did Jennings have 50 in the last game? I don't remember the box score.
Jennings
that's a really
13 yards in the last. No, he was.
That feels like a good game. No, I don't think it's Marvin Harrison. Wide receiver. He's 50. I'm gonna go with Rasta's guess. I like Jennings as a guess. I don't think you're gonna pick Jennings for this segment, but I like it as a guess.
My teammate is the wide receiver 7 on the season.
My teammate's wide receiver 7. My teammate's wide receiver 7, and I have at least 50. I don't. The wide receiver 7's weird. Like if you would have gone higher or lower, I feel like I would have been close. I cannot think of.
I think the next one should help you get it.
50 yards.
It's the last one. I only put 4 on this one. This one was hard.
All right, hit me with one more. I'm not doing well in this one.
Last week I went off. 13 targets, caught 12 of them, 154, and a touchdown.
1 touch. It can't be Mooney because Mooney had 2 touchdowns.
I'm sorry, I made my own mistake.
Oh, it is Mooney.
I was looking at it. I was like, that's not right, Phil. That's wrong. Yeah, 154 and 2. And
But yeah,
answers are in chat.
the other
That's Mooney.
Jennings. That is
Okay.
well said, Ross. I
Yes,
like
that's
that.
exactly what it is. So there's the answer. So Darnell Mooney. So we talked about this a little bit. We kind of sprinkled him in, sprinkles on our cupcake here today. What do you do with Darnell Mooney in Dynasty? I don't want to talk about redraft, because in redraft, I think you're holding and I think you're starting him. I think that's the only answer. I think you got to play the kid right
I think
now.
he's like a legitimate must start.
I think he's at a minimum flex. At a minimum flex. If your team's just got really great receivers, good for you. You can flex, Darnell Mooney. If not, I think you're starting him depending on the matchup. But in Dynasty, what are we thinking about Darnell Mooney's value rest of season and then into, let's talk about it, next year?
So I don't think he's a sell. The one thing I don't think he is a sell, because I feel like in Dynasty there's a lot. We already talked about it earlier. There's a lot of power in name recognition and what's associated with that name. And I feel like the thing associated with Mooney is like he kind of feels like a redraft pop, because his situation is like he's not like a clear-cut elite wide receiver 2 on the team. At least that wasn't how he was talked about. He's new on the team, so he doesn't kind of have an identity with that. He kind of feels like he had his shot and he's kind of fading a little bit and he just never kept it. I don't see people saying, hey, you know what? I love Mooney. I am willing to pay kind of sticker price and maybe a little extra if I have to go get my guy. I just don't see Dynasty players. I feel like people are going to be like, yeah, I'm going to trade for him, and then it's just going to be blasé, and it was already the best it's going to be, and it's never going to, I just don't see people taking the risk. I see everyone wanting to trade for him and low ball offer after low ball offer coming in. So for me, that's why he's more of a hold. Unless you're rebuilding and you're like, what am I doing with these useless points on my team that are kind of actively hurting me? I'm full holding and I'm starting him all the time. And I think you're going to get a year or two or more. He's not terribly old of very good production. Very good.
I think the biggest question you have to ask is, what do you believe about this offense? Do you believe it's the offense that you saw last week where Kirk Cousins... Now, look, Kirk Cousins is not going to break the franchise record every week. Yeah. Let's just put that out there, okay? But is it an offense where Kirk Cousins is going to be the older Kirk Cousins we saw in Minnesota, where he can get you to 300 yards passing volume, 3 to 325, 350? And that means goodness for Mooney? Or is it going to be what we saw at the beginning of the season, where on my DFS my DFS betting show last Thursday, I'm on record, go look it up, I took the under on Kirk Cousins 235.5 passing yards because he had not gotten there except for one time the entire season. I think his highest total was 248. So I was like, yeah, sorry, I'm going to take the under in a game where I thought Vita Vea was just going to stuff the run, and they haven't been efficient in the air, and they haven't been good. And what does a kid do? The kid. And what does a 38-year-old man is not a kid. But what does Kirk Cousins do? He goes and breaks a franchise record. Okay, I got a prop wrong. Boo-hoo. But I have to ask that question again of like, what is the identity of this offense? And I don't know the answer to that right now. So I think the answer for Mooney is you hold him until you can figure that out. Because at some point, we were talking about it pre-show, at some point Bijan has to score a touchdown, right? He has to score a rushing touchdown, a legitimate, actual, I'm going to get the ball and run it over the painted area of the field. Because that's not happening right now. At some point, Kyle Pitts is going to score a touchdown. I mean, like, I don't know.
Mooney's kind of eating Kyle Pitts' lunch. When I watch the game, I see that they're both running routes, and Mooney is just more open, faster than Kyle Pitts is.
That's it.
Kirk Cousins is a veteran. He's throwing to the open guy, and Mooney is just the most open. He's more open than Drake London. London has caught some pretty good passes, but it's not like he was wide open like Mooney is on like seemingly every damn route.
I think, Millie Mills. He got one rushing touchdown already this year. Yep, you're right. Sorry, one rushing touchdown. So what we drafted Bijan for was a whole lot more than one rushing touchdown.
The average one.
I mean, I was thinking he'd be at least 3 by now, and we're into week 6, right? So for me, it's a hold. Unless you get it crazy, unless someone's just like over the moon for Mooney, and yes, I said that on purpose, like I think you can sell him, but I would hold him and play him.
So here's the line for me, because I'm not sure. Let's just say it's like you don't know where it's going to be. It's not late. It's not, you don't know. It's mid-round, average, second in Superflex. You're offered a second for Mooney, right? Because it's a team that just wants to get a little better at wide receiver. They're not like a super contender, so it's a late second. It's just call it an average second. Do you like? What are your thoughts on the second?
I'd rather have Mooney right now, just because the second, like it's contingent upon what my roster looks like, right? Like if I'm just shallow, super shallow at running back, and I'm targeting running back in next year's classes, then yeah, I'll probably take the second, just because I know that you and I both have talked about this, right? We really like the talent that's coming out next. This year was dog shit. I don't want to, like, I'm sorry. Unless Jonathan Brooks comes out in the next couple of weeks and just starts running all over people, which I do not expect to happen, obviously, because he's playing his first NFL game and he's a rookie and he hasn't played football in 14 months. This running back class, I'm sorry, has been as advertised, which is not good. Like I mean, Braylon Allen, I think, is the best running back in this class right now. I think. But like Trey Benson hasn't been around. Blake Corum,
Bucky's making a good push for it.
Bucky could be in that conversation, sure. But like Blake Corum, who the fuck is that?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Like, does that dude even participate in football? So it's like, this running back class has been atrocious. So sorry to come back on what we were talking about. If I'm really trying to go grab, maybe I have 2 or 3 second rounders for next year and I know I need running backs, then yeah, I would trade Mooney for the second. But if I'm just like trading to trade, or like, oh, I could get this extra pick, like, I'd rather have Mooney. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me right now to go and just grab a player that, look, second round picks bust all the time. First round pick, Quentin Johnston's name's in this chat somewhere. He was the 103 or 4 in most drafts 2 years ago.
Yeah. I would rather take, I think we're saying is I'd rather take the risk that he's worth a third down the line. Oh, I could have had my second. I'm happy keeping Mooney for a while. I think it's safe to say that, like, there's players that you're like, box score, man, it looks good. But I've watched enough of the Falcons games to just be like, he's playing good. He's open. He's open a lot. He should have had better games because he's had some big drops.
Yeah, that's correct. Well,
they're going to keep throwing the ball, you know, because he's so damn open that, like, it's like Wicks. It's like he's so open though. I don't care if he has drops; he'll figure it out. Like, he's not dropping all of them. He's still killing it out there. Yeah, no. When you're winning routes because you're just open with a veteran quarterback that can get to a third, damn near a fourth read because he's been doing it so long at a high level. Who's to say Kirk? What if Kirk stays good and plays another year? You know.
Well, I was just gonna say this too. Like, the Falcons aren't good. I don't expect them to just suddenly that was a huge win for them to get that overtime win against Tampa the other night, because if they don't get that, Tampa gets a 2-game lead in that division.
Yeah,
it's probably
they
over.
Should have. I'm just so
pissed. The Buccaneers
was so wide open that game.
The Buccaneers lost the game.
Over.
And let's not forget that there was a humongous face mask on Bucky that was not called.
Absolutely.
I mean, his whole head got turned. Right? Like, to be fair, if that flag gets thrown, that's the first down right there, and the game's over. We're not having this conversation. But now that they are in the division and they're competitive again because of that win, I still don't expect them to be great. I expect them to be losing games and chasing points. And that's going to be good for Cousins. Going to have to throw it, and that's where he's at his best. So, yeah, that's why I picked these 3 names, because these are names that we had questions about in the offseason, and we still have some. Well, we didn't have about Mooney. It was kind of a fun one, but we had major questions about Herbert. We had major questions about Jacobs, and I think we still have some of those same questions lingering. So, all right, my dude, let's wrap it up. Let's tell the people where. Come on, buttons. I'm going to put you on the full screen here. There we go. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me over at the Fantasy Football Tavern, mostly on YouTube. We're working on some of the other platforms right now. I've taken a little bit of a hiatus, so I have not really produced a lot of my own content on my channel, really just focused on the Get Right content. But definitely check in. I'm going to be coming out with some more content soon. We have some things in the works. I think we have a new show that's going to be focused mostly on NFL betting of all various shapes and sizes that I think we're getting pretty excited for. So tease that a little bit, but really helps me out a lot. If you guys want to go drop me a sub over at the Fantasy Football Tavern, definitely appreciate it. And then of course, definitely check our boys out at the Get Right Fantasy Network, where we're always hanging out. Appreciate y'all.
Always a good time, brother. I always love having you here on the show. And obviously, for those that are listening, you can go ahead and link is in the chat here in the description. go ahead over to youtube.com/the extra point FFB. Go ahead, give me a like and subscribe over there. For those that don't have time to catch the show every week live, you can always listen along on Spotify and Patreon at The Extra Point. Go ahead and find me on X at P Ruskin. Find me on Sleeper at P Ruskin. And Kendall and I will be back doing some, as he mentioned, some of those betting shows. I know I have been doing my Thursday show, has kind of, because it's right before Thursday Night Football, has kind of transitioned into a DFS lineup. What are we doing for weekly picks? What's it look like for my cash pools? And then obviously Underdog giving us those higher or lower picks. So I will not be live tomorrow night doing that show. I am going to pre-record and release that as a podcast episode only. So that'll be available tomorrow before Thursday Night Football. Normal content. I'll just do it earlier in the day. That will be available on Spotify and Patreon because me and the boys are headed about 35 minutes north to a pretty rad outdoor beer garden because it's Thursday Night Football and our Niners will be on the road kicking the Seahawks ass. So I'm going to go watch the game and I will be doing the show a little bit early so that I get up there and get a good seat in my beer garden. So, all right, my brother, love having you on the show. It was awesome as always. For everybody that had a chance to join in, we always appreciate y'all being here. And as Kendall said, please jump over to our host network, the Get Right Fantasy Network, and give us a like and a subscribe over there. Anthony and Frank are coming up next, and they will be going through some more trades and some more buy low, sell high. So be sure to tune in here at 9 p.m. Pacific to catch that show. Otherwise, see y'all soon. We out.
Wanted to white fantasy is the play. Marking nothing, but I tuned in.